A short story by Paul McCann, The Symphony of Life. Catherine, or Kit as she was known, left her home in Cork in 1850 for America in search of fame and fortune. The voyage seemed cursed with bad luck and danger as the ship cut through mountainous waves on a rough and perilous voyage. A number of passengers perished from scarlet fever and they were buried at sea. Kit survived the journey, and not long after arriving in Ellis Island, she was met by her uncle, who had offered her a room for his home until she got on her feet. Her Uncle George also helped her get a job as a secretary on the waterfront where he worked. It was there that Kit saw the daily struggle for existence on the hungry mile around the wharves. There were hard times indeed, and many prayed for death instead of enduring the hardship without work or food. Many arrived at Ellis Island with no return ticket, facing the bleak existence of an unknown future as migrants in a new land. Kit was the youngest in her family, but she was the first to venture out into the world on her own to find a better life. After her work on the waterfront, Kit went for singing lessons at a music school, which was a long walk from the wharf. Every afternoon, Kit would walk instead of catching the bus, as she was trying to save the money and didn't want to pay the bus fare to get to her singing lessons. Kit was a clever girl because she had to be. Her singing teacher was very strict, as was her Uncle George, especially when it came to paying for board and lodging. Kit wrote home to her parents once a week at first, then once a month, keeping them updated on her progress. Sometimes she wished she could return, but refused to go back with the shame of not finding her fame and fortune. Now and then, Kit would go to the local community hall to listen to the Irish fiddle players and the accordion players, who would play their reels and jigs as if their life depended on it. They often say you can take someone out of the country, but you can't take the country out of them, and that was to be said for Kit, who loved to listen to the music. And for a homesick Irish girl, it meant the world to hear the music. That was a big part of her. But the music made her homesick in the place that she was living. Sometimes she would whisper, "I live not where I love." In 1855, Kit left her job on the waterfront and started a career with the bank as a typist and a relief teller. Kit worked hard and worked her way up to the top job that saw her working as the private secretary to the manager of the bank and the executive officer of the board. Kit still attended singing lessons and was a regular performer at church every Sunday at High Mass. One Sunday at Mass, there was a man who worked for a major music publisher, and when he heard Kit singing, he immediately knew she had a talent. He waited until outside the church when Mass was over and began to speak to her. Kit was one of the last to come out after Mass. She always liked to stay behind and say a few quiet prayers for her family back in Ireland. The man introduced himself as Sean Kelly from MGM Enterprises, and he complimented Kit on her singing ability. And then he offered her an option of the journey of a lifetime, to travel the world from San Francisco to Paris and Rome and back to her home in Cork in Ireland. Kit was so excited and in a state of shock with what was said, she could hardly put words together to accept the offer. Eventually she found her voice and said, "Yes." Kit began to see many people and places, and she sang on stage with accomplished musicians and small orchestras. Her voice etched the echoes of greatness born from life's experience. Her voice touched the hearts of all who heard her sing, and that sound would never fade from the memory of her audiences. In 1866, Kit left her job in the bank to become a professional singer on the world tour as part of an MGM production called The Bird Has Flown and Found Her Nest. The show was voted Best Stage Musical of the Year, and Hollywood eventually contacted Kit about the lead role for a movie featuring her love of music and her passionate singing voice that had propelled her to the stage and recording studios in a very short space of time. Kit had recorded a number of songs on vinyl records, and one of her most popular songs was called the Symphony of Life. The song had captured the hearts of many audiences where she had performed, and concerts were fully booked around the world. On one occasion, Kit sang to the President of America at a private function. She was affectionately known as Dame Kitty from Cork. Kit's singing career took a new direction when she ventured into the Christian broadcasting field, where she began singing gospel songs. It never paid her as well as her other shows, but it was a personal decision that she said she had been called to do. Kit was now being heard on many radio stations and seen differently and performing in different concerts around the world. Her audiences were now much smaller than before, and the songs she sang were hymns and worship. Kit soon won the respect of another American music publisher who specialized in gospel music, and they offered her a 12-month world tour that became a crusade. When Kit appeared as a soloist on the stage, some people said she had the voice of an angel. During the crusade, Kit appeared on TV as a guest for the evening. When she appeared on TV, Kit loved to recite poetry for the great Irish writers in her memory, and for the love of their words, it came through quite clear and evidently when she spoke. After a long time with the crusade, Kit retired from the stage and became a resident in a nursing home where she enjoyed a quiet life until she died. Just before her death, she said, "Life is a song. You have to love the lyrics." Today, in her memory, a symphony of her life continues, as if the Master was still listening. The end.